Hello folks, welcome back to Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. First of all, happy Guru Purnima. Hope all is well with everybody. Now, the whole lot of things under Modi's to-do list. Now these are things he's got to. We started last week with Uniform Civil Code. Let me just finish that, then we'll go on to the rest which is connected with this. Well, first, you remember, it has already been in the offing for decades. 1986, again around 1995, Supreme Court notings. And then now, everybody's been hearing about Uniform Civil Code. It has to come. But there's been, how shall I put it, objections from people like the Muslim Personal Law Board. Why? Who created them? Who gave them that authority? Or was it self-appointed, self-opinionated, and self-given? Because I can't understand this at all. The very existence of that board. Look, the Quran Sharif itself says that every Muslim must, and I say repeat, must, respect, obey, and live within the tenets and limits of the laws of the land he resides in. He has to. Under the circumstances, what objection can anybody have? What is the need for a Muslim Personal Law Board? Where does that come in? Is the Quran or the Holy Quran supreme, or is the Muslim Personal Law Board supreme? I mean, which is how shall I put it, which has a heavier rating? And if the Holy Quran, which is what Islam is based on, says something, that has to be obeyed. Otherwise, every Muslim who goes against that is a kafir. The other problem is this, that 95 or 98% of Muslims may never have read the Quran. And therefore they go by all these mullahs and maulvis and maulanas and such people. Whatever they tell them is according to most people, the gospel. Now if that is the case, where is Islam? How can that be in danger when people never acceded to it or never adopted it in the first place? So I hope that argument or that objection is completely outlawed. There is no objection, there cannot be one to the Uniform Civil Code. Now then, with it, a whole lot of other things have to be taken into account. For instance, there is a CAA, a Citizens Amendment Act, and an NRC. Now both these have to run in conjunction with a Uniform Civil Code. Why? Look, these two are not against Muslims or Christians or anybody else in the country, people who belong here. But they are designed to identify, locate, and eventually remove from this country all those illegal migrants who came without permission. And it's not just one or two of them, about 70 to 80 million. It's like the whole of the population of the UK and half of Australia dumped onto India. Does that make sense? No. We work very hard to attain or get to this particular state. Do not let outsiders come and spoil it. It's time we understood one thing. We have to stand up for ourselves, not to what other people say we should be, but what we believe we should be. We are Indians, and let us behave like Indians, for the benefit of India, not for the benefit of outsiders who say this is what you should be like. Because look, if this illegal migrant status is abused as it is at the moment, what happens? The net result is, have a look at France. They let in a whole lot of illegal, refugees, so-called. And you see France today. One spark and the whole of France is burning, literally. Now the problem with these illegal migrants, 95% of them are either Bangladeshis or Rohingyas, all Muslims. Now from the moment they cross the border, there is a total connection. They know beforehand where they will go, how they will get there, who are their helpers. That chain exists. And where do they go? Well, you'll find these, call it clusters, or slums, or what do you call it? I suppose at best right now would be encroachers. Where do they encroach? Where do they land themselves? Very close to bus stations, where they can disappear very quickly. Railway stations, adjacent to railway lines or railway properties. Classic example is Haldwani. Roadways, new roads that are being built at strategic points along, where intersections come in. Bridges, new bridges coming up. Both sides of the river you'll find these clusters or colonies. Now and you'll find this not just in one or two areas, but throughout the countries. And because these chains of help exist, they have to exist. Otherwise, how did you get Rohingyas in Jammu and Kashmir? How do you get all these Bangladeshis in and around Delhi? See, the problem is, in all these strategic locations, what happens? If there is a spark, the whole country will come to a standstill. Now, what do? They pervade every part of our society. They start off with the old newspaper buyers, your scrap merchants. They collect rubbish from our homes. Then they become carpenters, welders, repairmen, and people who fetch and carry, the loaders and unloaders of lorries and trucks and so on, or tempos. And we don't even realize they're there. Now they've resorted to another ploy. Out of the 7 or 8 crore, that is 70 or 80 million Bangladeshis and Rohingyas, a good 10 million have adopted Hindu names. And all their IDs or identification papers are made in those Hindu names. Do we even know? Do we even realize it? We just see that none of them get sent for a medical checkup. Now, if this continues, where is India? How far is it from becoming an Islamic country? You see, let's just go back to this Uniform Civil Code. The objections to it was, you're curtailing all our rights and this, that and the other for Muslims. Now, why do Muslims consider that equality means they are more equal than everybody else? And that their women folk are less than the dirt under their feet? This is not equality. So where is the constitution? The constitutional rights of non-Muslims, who apparently are lower in hierarchy than Muslims. And what about Muslim women? Don't they deserve protection? Especially 10, 12, 14-year-old Muslim girls who are married off then. Is this what you call equality? And then, of course, you've got all these other silly practices like love jihad and forced conversions and so on. Now, the centre had better get its act together. For one thing, this huge influx of foreigners, Bangladeshis and Rohingyas, that has to be stopped. They have to be identified and sent back. We can't afford to look after them also. Second, all these peculiar, and I say peculiar to Muslims, not to the rest of India, your All India Muslim Personal Law Board, your halal certification people. Where do they come from? I mean, this is simply to loot and make a lot of money to finance all these other unwanted activities, like forced conversions, not just girls and women but also children. I mean, you should see some of the clips I've received of the way young Hindus are tortured in Pakistan, forced to convert. It really make your hair stand on end. But we can't go into that here. Anyway, first, along with the Uniform Civil Code, the CAA and the NRC, they have to be implemented by force if necessary. Otherwise, you will get the same situation as in France. Now, all this is under control so far in UP because of his policy, the policies of Yogi Adityanath ji. He comes down heavily on all this. You break the law, you're in serious trouble. And there's no compromise. We have to adopt that same attitude from the center itself. And when the center passes that law, the whole country had better accede and adopt. You can't have two states saying yes and others saying no. I'm sorry, that's not on. Why? You look at what's happening now. The BJP government brought in an anti-conversion law in Karnataka. A whole lot of Muslims disappeared into Madhya Pradesh. Now that the Congress government is back and they've repealed that anti-conversion law, all those guys are going back to Karnataka and taking a few more with them. Why? Do we want such things to happen? No. If you are in India, be an Indian. Stop destroying the very fabric of our lives. Now, along with this Uniform Civil Code, CAA and NRC, anti-conversion law, that must also be from the center, and every state has to conform and adopt and implement. Not just adopt, but implement by force if necessary. If you want to change the demography, please go somewhere else. These are the laws here. If you're Muslim, the Quran says you have to live within these laws. Stop breaking them. As you found in Uttarakhand, Hindus got fed up, and when they took action, trust me, the backlash can be pretty nasty. Don't provoke it. Now, along with this strict anti-conversion law, something else should also be changed, the Constitution. One of the articles says you cannot teach Hinduism anywhere. That has to be repealed. Or changed to Hinduism may be taught anywhere like schools, colleges, universities, temples, hired premises and so on. Just the same as Islam as Christianity. If you cannot teach it, then scrap the law that says, or the article that says you can teach Islam and Christianity anywhere. Otherwise, this country is not secular, and there is certainly no equality. Along with that, they have to repeal this other act, that all donations to Islamic or Christian organization is free of tax. The government doesn't touch it. You cannot do that. Particularly when you say that all Hindu temples and donations to them are taken over by the state governments to stop misappropriation, misuse. And usually those governments and those people are the ones who misuse those funds. They misuse it how? They did for a long time Hajj pilgrimage subsidies. Where does that come in? How does that happen? Fortunately, the BJP government has stopped that. Why do state governments pay the salaries of Maulanas and Maulvis? This is not done. especially when the Constitution says government and religion have to be kept separate. So why are Maulanas or Muslim clerics having their salaries paid by the state governments, but not Christians and certainly not Hindu temple priests? What is the meaning of this? So where is your equality and where is your secularism? Okay? Now, we come to something even more basic. Why is the huge majority being penalized? And why, in the name of secularism, is one group, Muslims, being kept up on a pedestal? Don't you think it's about time this stopped? If you want an equal or a state of equality, they have to come down to the same level. And Muslim women have to be brought up to the same level as all other women, with the same protection, especially underage or minors. This has to happen. If not, what kind of a country are we? Let's remember one thing. One nation means only one law. You cannot have a country where you have the Indian Penal Code as well as Quranic law, Muslim Personal Law Board law, and I think the Darul Uloom, that has its own diktats. What is this? Where did these come up from? And now, of course, you've got this halal certification board as well. Where did that come from? Did the government of India at any time bring those into being? Did they authorize them to have this particular power? Then where did they come from? The whole concept of one nation is thrown out through the window. So, let's get together and understand that all these things I've mentioned so far today go together in one package. So far, we've been dealing with constitutional matters. Uniform Civil Code, the CAA, the NRC, and these other laws which have to be amended or changed, like the anti-conversion and so on. But there's one very, very big item. The government began this, the anti-corruption drive. We've heard of literally hundreds of raids all over the place, so much cash recovered, so much money recovered, so many documents recovered, so many scams uncovered. But that's all we've heard. We've not heard of any convictions. Why? What happens to all these people? They're still running around, powerful people, still in power? Then what's the point? Just if they come into the BJP fold, all is forgiven? No, I'm sorry, that's not on. They should not be there. Mr. Modi, please pay attention. Do not allow these tainted people into government, because they're going to do the same thing given half a chance. Let them fade into insignificance. Otherwise, the moment the other government comes into power, these guys will switch sides. And even more corruption. If you want to stamp out corruption, make sure that those people whom you do catch, whom you do suspect, and you do have evidence against, are put behind bars and kept there. For instance, the National Herald scam has been going on for how many years? 2 decades? When is that going to be closed? Rahul Gandhi, why is he going around making big speeches? He's supposed to be in prison. He's also out on bail. How long is that going to continue? What kind of a farce is this? Now, if a person is guilty of a criminal act, he should be behind bars. That's it. None of this silence afterwards. Big hoo-ha, big news all over the place for the first week or 10 days, and then silence. The whole thing just dies down, or dies a natural death. We don't hear anymore. Now, I understand that a lot of the money recovered is gone into projects. The money which is raised through taxes, that also has gone through into projects. That is why there's been so much rapid development for the last 8 or 9 years. Unlike previous governments, where the money came in, yes, but it disappeared into people's pockets, not into projects. If you remember, Rahul Gandhi himself admitted in one of his election campaigns that we know that for every rupee, only 10 paisa, that is 10%, actually goes to the project. He was going to try and make it 30%. He never did. Because he had to bring back all his old-timers. And they ensured that all the money remained in their pockets. Now please don't dilute this, Mr. Modi, because a lot of people expect stern action against corruption. Even this illegal migrant trade or chain works because of corruption. It's not just Muslims in that chain, a lot of non-Muslims who aid and abet, and they help in every possible way, they get money. There is a set rate for every PAN card, every Aadhaar card, every ration card, every driver's license which they can procure for these people. And with these papers, of course, they say we're Indian. How? Now that creates not only a congestion problem, but it strains all our resources like electricity, water, food. It also keeps sending prices skywards because the demand is so much higher. They also create an employment problem because they take up all these bits of employment. We don't even realize it. And yet Indian nationals, people who should be doing those jobs, are not permitted to. Because once these guys get in, nobody else can come in. They take that over completely. So please, get your act together, Mr. Modi. We would like to see you continue, but we would like proper and full and complete action against corruption. Corrupt people should be behind bars, not in 5-star hotel resorts. And when I say all these people should be in prison, I mean proper prisons. Prison discipline, prison food, prison stay, boarding quarters. Not in prison but living in a 5-star hotel or 5-star resort. Like, for instance, the Aga Khan Palace during the independence movement. That's where Mr. Gandhi and Mr. Nehru were held as prisoners. I don't call that prison. No, sir. This has to get out. I mean, Mr. Lalu Yadav, for instance, he's supposed to be serving time. Is he? Is this what you call serving a prison term? Now come on, let's get this act together. Please understand, Mr. Modi, we're all with you, but we need results too. Not only must you be honest, but you must also be seen to be honest. Not only must you be against corruption, but you must be seen to be totally against corruption. So when you find people who are corrupt, and guilty, put them away. Make sure they cannot come back into public life. And here's another thing. Let me just add this, possibly as an afterthought. All those who are tainted, all those who are being investigated, should never be allowed to contest elections. Because if there is even a slightest touch of corruption anywhere, well, he's corrupt, so why can't I? This is something I learned half a century ago. You know, I used to be in what is now Chhattisgarh. And we found that the lowest paid government employee was a patwari in a village. And yet, not only was he most corrupt, he was also the most powerful. Your collector, your SDM, your district magistrate, they were all frightened of him. Why? He had all the land records. And if he said, this piece of land belongs to you, it would take you 200 years to prove otherwise. He accepted bribes from everybody and he said, yes, I know I'm corrupt, but don't you dare look at me. When the chief minister comes to the local area and he stays at the circuit house and so on, all his expenses, you think he pays it? No. If the collector goes around getting money from this contractor or that shopkeeper or that businessman to pay those bills. Is this not corruption? The day you put that chief minister behind bars, I will give myself up. Until then, keep away from me. This is how far down that corruption has gone, from the top down. It doesn't go from the bottom up, it goes from the top down. And until you get those people at the top and really put them away, and show the country and the world, if necessary, that you mean business, that your anti-corruption drive is real and is seen to be real, that is the day people trust you completely. And all these opposition parties won't have a leg to stand on. Why? You know why. Right now they're all corrupt and you're cutting off all their avenues of corruption. But you've got to catch these guys and put them away too, out of harm's way, so that they cannot damage the economy anymore. We've had too much of it already. Let's cry halt and make India what it should have been a long time ago. Truly great. Thank you, folks. Please, as usual, pass this on to others, your friends, your groups. Ask them to send it on further. You want to subscribe? Most welcome. Be very happy if you did. Thank you and see you next time.